Hi, I'm Gene McLaughlin. I'd like to welcome you to Directions 2015. On November 3rd, Old Bridge voters will go to the polls to elect 3 candidates for the Township Council at large seats and also to elect a mayor. We're bringing you interviews with these candidates to give you a chance to hear their views on the various topics and to make you more informed when you go to the polls. Today, we're delighted to welcome in our candidates for mayor. First, if I may, from my far left, the candidate who is the challenger, Democrat, Mr. William Cerra.
Gene.
And the mayor, as you well know, the incumbent, Mayor Owen.
Thank
Folks,
you, Gene.
thank you very much for coming in today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Mr. Cerra, since you're the challenger, you're probably least known, less known than the mayor. Would you give us a little overview, please, of
Sure.
your background, a little resume?
First of all, thank you very much for having me here, Gene. I'm a lifelong resident of Old Bridge. I'm born and raised here. I grew up in the Madison Park section of Old Bridge. I live here in Ward 2 with my wife Annette, my children Gina and William, and my dog Roscoe.
Your dog Roscoe, okay.
Part of my family, yes.
Okay.
I worked for the Township of Old Bridge for 33 years.
Right.
I retired as a police captain. While I was there, I was a member of the FOP, Lodge 22. I was president of that organization for 22 years. And I was a member of the PBA prior to that, and I was vice president for 4 years. My community volunteerism includes I'm a member of the Knights of Columbus, St. Ambrose. I'm a charter and current member of the Kiwanis Club of Old Bridge. I volunteered for 12 years for the St. Ambrose Carnival, which I co-chaired. And I also coached in the Cheesequake Babe Ruth Association for 25 years, and I was vice president of that organization for 18 years.
Okay, Mr. Cerra, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Gene.
Mayor, I'm not sure you need that much of an introduction, but for the new people in town who may not know you or may not know there's a mayoral election, would you just hit the high spots,
Sure, Gene.
please?
Thank you. Well, I've been a resident here in Old Bridge for 54 years. My family moved here from Hoboken, New Jersey. I was very small when they moved here, so I grew up here in town. I'm a product of the local school systems. I attended St. Thomas the Apostle School, and I graduated from Cedar Ridge High School. After Cedar Ridge, I went to college, came home, married my high school sweetheart, Donna. We have a son, Owen Jr., who lives out of the country now, lives in Switzerland. My daughter, Valerie, and I have a new grandson in my house, Joseph Owen.
Okay.
So a lot has changed in 4 years.
Yeah, I see it has. Okay, Mayor.
I've been the mayor for the last 4 years. That's
Right.
been my full-time 24/7.
Right.
In my spare time, I oversee and operate a small local business, Owen Henry Contracting. We service the utility industry here in New Jersey. We've been in business for almost 20 years now. I've been married for 34 years to
Okay.
Donna, so I better get that out there, Gene.
Okay, yeah.
My community involvement started early in the 90s. I became very involved in the community when I became successful with that sense of give back to the community that had given me so much.
Yes.
So I started out with Mayor Cannon. I was appointed to the Environmental Commission. From there, I was put on the Planning Board. I had a stint on the school board for 3 years, which I enjoyed tremendously. Then I ran for mayor 4 years ago. But throughout my whole adult life, I've been very generous to the community, giving back financially to many organizations, especially the Special Needs Program. Not only here in Old Bridge, but also in Sayreville. And I've also been very generous with scholarships for our Old Bridge, students who want to go to private high school and continue their education in college. So I've been very involved in the community. I can't remember not being involved in the community.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Gene.
Mr. Cerra, if I may turn to you, why are you running at this time for mayor, number one, and number two, how are you going to gain name recognition? Why are you running, first of all?
Well, that's an interesting story, Gene. 4 years ago, when the current administration decided to lay off 10 police officers due to a $8 million debt deficit that they claim existed, and due to my job in the police department before I left, operating the budget for 14 years, I knew that would not be a savings. Because I have done studies prior to when I left, when other mayors thought about laying off police officers. So I decided to Oprah, which is an official request for records from the township, a copy of the cost analysis that the township did to determine that they were going to save money by laying off these 10 police officers. And my response was that they didn't do one, which either they didn't give it to me and didn't want to, or they didn't do one, which I find not a professional way to lay off 10 police officers.
Right. Is this what motivated you to run for mayor?
Well, I'm getting to that.
Yeah, okay,
Okay?
please.
So I continued to keep watching. I did my own cost analysis without adequate numbers, and I concluded that the township would actually lose about $200,000. At the end of the year, when all the numbers were true, it ends up they lost over $300,000. During 2012, the township decided they wanted to bond some money. They in turn hired a bond rating company, Fitch, to come in. Fitch gave a report in October, which indicated at the close of the 2011 fiscal year, the township had a $7.1 million surplus. And due to the strong administrative procedures put in place starting in 2010, was why the township was in good financial shape and gave the town a AA rating. I come to the conclusion at that time that when the
Opportunity
accusation of the $8 million deficit in the election in 11, I can come to the conclusion that that was a lie. And I found it disgraceful that 10 police officers were laid off to try to perpetuate a lie.
But if
And
I
that-
may interrupt you, Mr.
Go
Cerra,
ahead.
this is why you decided to run for mayor. This is
And
one of the
at that
motivating
point, I
factors. That's
decided
my
I was
point.
going to get more involved, which here we are today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cerra.
Gene, I have to
Mayor,
reply,
yeah,
obviously. I have to
Mayor,
reply
may
to
I,
that.
since Mr. Cerra brought this up at this time,
And it's been well
how would
documented,
you-
Gene.
how would
4
you,
years ago,
reply?
the mess I inherited, to sit here today in 2015 and think that the township had an $8 million surplus is just utterly ridiculous. And I'm almost embarrassed for someone to say that, because it's all well documented. And this town, in fact, was in the red for approximately 6.7, almost $7 million in debt. And that just proves that Mrs. Cerra cannot read a balance sheet, does not know about municipal finances, and it's all well documented. The police layoffs was determined well before I became mayor. That was a previous administration stance. In fact, I have documentation that 31 officers were going to be laid off, and that's all public, as Mr. Cerra said, operable. But to sit here and listen to just outright, misinformation is frustrating, because this town had to go through some difficult times, and it was not easy. It was a very tough decision.
Right.
The layoffs became, as an arbitration award came down, that was started well before I became mayor, and part of that, it was approximately an $850,000 award was given to the police officers, and to sit here and think that we laid police officers off when I didn't have to is utterly ridiculous. And if anyone who attended those council meetings 4 years ago saw, I stood up, I faced the music, the council faced the music, and I promised that I would, fiscally restore this town, get those officers back, and rebuild the police department. Here we are 4 years later. All the laid off officers, all their positions have been fully funded. The ones who wanted to come back are back, and there's 10 additional officers that I've hired since I've been the mayor. And to go back to the previous administration, there wasn't an officer hired in this town since 2006. So, it's just, it's nonsense. I don't know what other word to say it, Mr. Cerra. It's nonsense. And I know the residents know the truth. It's all documented.
May I?
And we shouldn't spend all this on one.
No,
Well,
that's
I
fine.
don't have
Please
half
keep
hour.
it just if
I,
you would.
I
Yeah.
will address his response.
Yeah.
I'm not going to criticize anything he says.
Yeah.
I will say this. His position is A and mine is B.
We'll
Very
agree to
sim-
disagree, but
Okay,
I have the
that's fair
facts
enough.
on my
Excuse
side.
me,
That's fair
I'm
enough.
not, I'm not done.
Okay, go.
Thank you. Judge for yourself. Go online, type in Old Bridge, New Jersey bond rating. Look up the report that was done October of 12. Read it for yourself. Okay? I know for a fact laying off those police officers cost us $300,000. I have the numbers. And when we debate, not an interview,
Right.
I will at length discuss and go over that, exactly where it all is. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. As I said, Mayor, I think I'll quote you. Let's agree to disagree so we don't devote all our time to this one topic. Mr. Cerra, one thing I asked you a moment ago is how would you gain recognition as a newcomer?
Excuse me, Gene?
How would you gain recognition as a newcomer?
Recognition?
Name recognition.
Name recognition.
Yes, sir.
Well, I believe through my involvement in the community over the last 40 years, I have a pretty good name recognition. But if anybody is unfamiliar with me, they can go on my Facebook page, Old Bridge First 2015, and read about me and my positions.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Cerra.
You're welcome, Gene.
Mayor, 4 years as mayor. What have you learned?
Old Bridge is a big town.
Yeah.
Old Bridge is a very big town. And I also learned what could go wrong will go wrong as a mayor. And I think I've learned, I proved myself to myself and to the residents of Old Bridge that I can handle just anything that comes our way. It's just filled, every day is just filled with something, challenges every day as a mayor, I've learned. And, you have to be completely dedicated to this town, and I am.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Again, Mr. Cerra, if I can go back to you. Biggest challenge the township is facing as you sit here as a newcomer running for this high office. What do you think the issues are now?
I believe there's a lot of
Okay, why don't you
challenges
hit
that
the
are
top,
occurring right
top 2
now.
or 3?
Probably the priority would be the police because we're inadequately staffed. We have less police officers now than we did 4 years ago. But everybody's concerned about taxes. So I would have to assume that would be the issue they'd like to hear about the most.
Yep. Okay, thank you. And Mayor, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing the township and facing you in the second administration?
I think any municipality right now, the finances are under the 2% cap,
Right.
with your ability to raise revenue and
Yes, sir.
taxes. It's those. I think those are the most important challenges that we have to face. But with along that, one of the most important obligations we have is public safety. And
Yeah.
I'm going to stay here and again disagree with Mr. Cerra, but right now here in 2015, we have more officers on the road now than we did before I became mayor. Like I said, not hiring officers since 2006 to 2012 led towards attrition. And the promotions were automatic before I became mayor. So anytime a vacancy occurred, somebody moved up and came off the road. We put a stop to that immediately. So right now, as I said, I've hired 10 additional officers. We also have a large complement of Special 2 officers with the school security detail now in place.
Right.
Crime is down in Old Bridge. Old Bridge is a very safe place to live, but we're not exempt from crazies. We had an active shooter under my term as mayor.
Yeah.
We had,
Unfortunately, yes, sir.
we've had 2 very tough winters where our emergency response had to be, right, up always. We couldn't not respond. And we had a series of home invasions. People from Texas
Yes.
decided to come to
Right.
Old Bridge. But each time we've had a problem here, the police have answered the call. We have a great department here in Old Bridge. I can't go back and make up for that lack of morale because they were without contracts before I became mayor. But right now, all our police unions are under contract, and those contracts were fought in the next room over from here, right here in Old Bridge. They weren't awarded by some arbitrator down in Trenton. We fought our battles here with our police unions, and everybody was happy with what we came out with in those agreements. And they were tough meetings, but they had to be done, and they were done here in Old Bridge. So public safety, I think we're top notch. We have one of the best police departments in the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
But there are, there's so many things going on, Gene.
I
It's hard
understand.
to focus on one thing,
Okay, thank you, Mayor. One question before we go
May
to
I
the break.
respond a little bit
Yeah,
to
sure,
that?
certainly, please.
Okay, when it comes to the police department, trust me, the morale is not high. Don't believe me, don't believe my opponent. Talk to a police officer when you see him. See what they have to say. Fact, you had 93 police officers when the mayor took over. You have 89 now. That's the numbers. 89 is not greater than 93. It's less. Okay? When we were at our peak, we had 105 police officers, and we were the second safest town with populations over 45,000. And that's because we were somewhat adequately staffed at that time. So when
Okay.
it comes to the police department, and during the debate, we'll be going round and round on that one because
yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cerra. It
You're
seems
welcome.
there is another situation of agreeing to disagree.
Let's
That's
agree to
correct.
disagree, Gene.
Okay, thank you. Folks, we're getting ready to take a break right now. We've been talking with the two candidates for the office of mayor in the election on November 3rd. The challenger, the Democrat, Mr. William Cerra, and our current mayor, Owen Henry, the incumbent. Please stay with us, and we'll be back in a minute to discuss some other topics.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self, and I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
Welcome back to Directions 2015. Today we're pleased to have with us our candidates for the office of mayor in the election on November 3rd. Our challenger, Mr. William Cerra, a Democrat, and our incumbent Mayor Owen Henry, obviously a Republican. If I can interject an issue before we get into this, we talked mostly about public safety. We talked a little bit about property taxes. One of the issues that's come up here quite frequently, Mayor, I think you can testify to it, is the abuse of drugs in the township. I mean, we've had guests on talking about it, the Municipal Alliance, Families Against Addiction. What's going on there with the
Well,
drugs?
Gene, it's not only Old Bridge.
Right.
This drug epidemic is taking over our country,
Yeah.
taking over our state. It's taken over the counties to the south of us. And like all communities, we are faced with a heroin problem, addiction, which has, prescription drug abuse has led to the abuse of
Right.
low-cost, inexpensive heroin. And here in Old Bridge, as you know, Gene, we've well documented our efforts. We have a very strong education, prevention, enforcement,
Right.
and a treatment here in Old Bridge to handle all phases of this epidemic. And we spent a lot of resources. I spend a lot of time personally working with the individuals, working with groups who are trying to, correct this social problem that we're having.
Yeah.
And so I have a very clear, strong record of what I've done here in Old Bridge. I'm presiding over a class at the League of Municipalities. As a mayor, I believe the mayor has to step up to the plate and admit there's a problem in his town. A lot of mayors won't do it. They don't want to have that stigma.
Yeah.
But that's not fair to the people in the community, because there are people in Old Bridge who are suffering.
Yes,
And
sir.
we need to do everything we can, first of all, to educate the parents and the students so that we don't have another generation of addicts. We need to have a strong enforcement. We do. We take a lot of material off the streets. We make a lot of arrests here in Old Bridge. And then we need the treatment for people who have fallen through,
yeah.
who have not been able to educate, prevent. And once the enforcement part takes over, it gets even a tougher road to climb. So the treatment is important not only for the addict, but the families that are suffering with an addict. So it's a serious problem. I take it, very seriously, and that's one of my goals in my second term is to, put additional focus on the drug epidemic. And we have made a difference in Old Bridge. Our police officers have Narcan. We have had 11 reversals so far
Right.
since I've been the mayor. We've seen a drop in our fatalities. We see a big emphasis in our schools. We saw the PSA by our high school
Yes, that was
students.
pretty good,
I mean,
yeah.
this is a problem where everyone has a role to play. Everyone, including the mayor. And I plan on playing my role.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Cerra, if I may, as a retired police officer, I'm sure you've seen your share of this, more so, not as much, I should say, as there is right now. How would you address this abuse, though? Why is it taking place, and how would you address it?
Well, the reason why it's taken place is the OxyContin, which is high in demand, is hard to get your hands on right now.
Okay.
Therefore, the price of heroin went from $30 to $40 a bag to
Right.
$4 a bag.
Right.
So supply and demand, okay? And I find it reluctant to believe the statement that the mayor just gave, based on the fact that it was a non-issue until I brought it up on my Facebook page 3 months ago. I looked into what was done in this town prior. There was one seminar given at the high school for 2 hours where a retired DEA officer gave a presentation.
Right.
And then the captain of the detective bureau in Old Bridge stood up and said he can't fight this war because he doesn't have enough men. Okay? That's a fact. Those things happened. As far as involvement of the town now, I don't think they've done enough. In fact, I don't think they've done anything.
What would you do?
I'm going to explain that.
Okay.
All right. Part of the problem is getting the adequate. I'm going to go back to the police department.
Please.
Getting adequate amount of men in the police department to enforce the laws on drugs.
Okay.
Right now, you have 2 men in narcotics. 2.
Okay. Okay.
42 square miles, population approximately 70,000. You have 2 men assigned to dealing with the drug problem in Old Bridge. That's not adequate. That won't do it. Okay? You also don't have the wherewithal to educate one of our officers to go into the schools, the high schools, and show these kids more graphic information on what overdoses and drug abuse does.
But isn't that the role of the DARE officer?
Absolutely not. The DARE officer deals with younger kids.
Okay.
And it's not graphic. It's not. It's more of a, drugs are bad for you. Let's do other things
Right.
besides drugs. You had the hugs instead of drugs. For a while, all the kids were hugging each other.
Yeah.
This is something that I'm talking about. The 16 and 17-year-old kids. They get graphic information. There's programs at these state penitentiaries that you bring these kids up there, and they can see these heroin guys, and they tell you stories, and it makes an impression. It lets them know what they're getting into before they do. But that's educational things that I believe should have been done already. Let's look at the numbers. The numbers are devastating. All right, Old Bridge in the last year and a half, 52 reported heroin overdoses, 12 deaths. All right. Narcan, we just got through a state grant,
Right,
or I believe a
right.
federal grant. I have to double check on that. It was utilized 11 times and worked 10 since we've had it. Okay? We have to aggressively attack this problem. We have to get information out to people who want to get help. All right? Our town is number 23 in the state out of 565 towns in reported substance abuse. Number 23. You can go online, you can find all this. I'm not making this stuff up. I don't think, if the administration was in fact doing a great job, we wouldn't be number 23. We wouldn't have all of these deaths and all these reported overdoses. I don't think they're doing an adequate job at all. I don't think they're doing anything. And I don't think they even brought it up until I brought it up 3 months ago on
Okay,
my
if
Facebook
I could
page.
thank you, Mr. Cerra. Mayor, how would you respond to Mr. Cerra's assertions?
I don't agree with Mr. Cerra again. We've been working hard at this, and as you know, we've had many issues. I first became mayor. We did a needs assessment in our community through our municipal alliance, and we gathered data, and that's what we came up with our plan to fight this addiction. And we've done so many programs in the schools, and Mr. Cerra, as a former law enforcement, knows, and every credible law enforcement agency in the state that I have spoken to agrees that we cannot arrest our way out of this. It has to be a multi-pronged approach, and we have all those prongs here in Old Bridge working to try to make a difference and save a generation here, and stop the next generation from coming into it. So, being number 23, we're the 13th largest town in the state. So,
Right.
I think you can say numbers, but the facts are the facts. That to the south of us, it's extremely bad, and we're in a perfect location for dealers from New York, from Philadelphia. We're doing a lot here in Old Bridge. Could we do more? You can always do more, Gene,
Right.
and that's my goal, to do more.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'll give you the last word on this, Mr. Cerra. What would you do if you become mayor? What would you do about the drug abuse? What would your way out be?
Way out? There's going to be no way out. You have to address this problem,
Yeah.
and you have to shoot higher than you can actually attain.
Yeah.
One is definitely increase the police department,
Okay.
and I'm not looking to arrest my way out of it, because that's only one part. That's A. Two, I would advertise throughout the town, because I would go hand in hand with rehabs, have kids be able to reach out to someone. The problem you have here is when some family has an individual who has this problem, it's like a secret. Nobody wants anybody to know that somebody in their family has a drug problem. Well, that's the stigma that we got to get rid of.
Agreed.
We have to open it up to let people know, don't be ashamed. This drug gets a hold of people and it doesn't let go. You have to open up and let them know it's okay to look for help. And you got to team up with rehab organizations, support groups, and pump money into them. Yeah, that's right. You got to pump money into them. You have to budget money for purposes of advertising. You got to work these things out. You just can't run TV shows and say, here's what we did. Because the people doing drugs, they don't watch the TV shows on Channel 12. I mean, that's a
I hope
fact.
they watch Channel 15, though.
Whatever it is, 12, 15, that's how long I go back,
Okay.
12, 15.
Right, okay.
That's my perspective.
And that's
on the
exactly what we've done, Gene. We have the support group in the library for our families against addiction.
Right.
We have our municipal alliance. We spend a lot of money on that, getting the message out into the schools. So there's one thing we can agree on, Mr. Cerra.
Okay.
We're doing what you want to do already.
Okay, good.
I
Thank
disagree,
you.
but that's fine.
If we can just turn one thing more, go to our question on challenges and issues. We've talked about public safety, we've talked about property taxes, we've talked about drug issues in the township. Mayor, are there any other challenges you see?
Gene, as I said before, a town this size is always going to face challenges. But I believe the most important challenge is the finances of this town.
Finances,
To keep the
okay.
finances in order. And over the past 4 years, we've gotten the finances in order.
Yeah.
We've got from a budget that was $56 million.
Right.
In 2011, we are now down in 2015 to a $52 million budget. That's a big difference.
Right.
We've lowered spending in town by almost $4 million. But at the same time, we've improved services. At the same time, we're being able to rebuild the police department, which was decimated before I came here. We've been able to do capital projects more than ever. We've spent over $22 million in investments back into the community since I've been the mayor. In 2011, there was a zero capital investment in residents. So, and once the finance of the town are in, all the problems that we face now we can work on, including the drugs.
Okay.
But if the town can't take care of itself, it can't take care of its residents. Now the township can take care of itself. And in fact, Gene, a press release went out the other day, the township bond rating has gone up a full notch from AA2 to AA1. So we're going in the right direction, and the investors see that. And all the towns and the state can't say the same thing.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Cerra, any other key issues you would identify that you would champion if you became mayor?
Well, I have a lot of issues that the people have out there.
What would be a couple more? We've talked about a couple of hot buttons anymore.
One is additional recreation for our kids.
Okay.
They don't see anything being done. And again, you have to implement more programs for things for kids to do. I went to the football game the last couple weeks, and there are a lot of kids that go there because they don't have anything else to do. Granted, the football game is a good place to go to, but that's an issue that I'm hearing. And I'm also hearing a lot of complaints about how the code enforcement, our inspectors, and the problems that the people are having dealing with them. I'm getting a lot of complaints. I was shocked because I didn't know any of this.
Right.
I never have the opportunity to call one.
Right.
But I received a lot of complaints about that, and I was surprised. So there's a lot of issues there, but taxes is the main issue that people want to hear. They want to hear what you're going to do.
What are you going to do? Property taxes, as long as I've been in this town, property taxes have been a bane. They've been always a key topic. I mean, now we've got these caps. We've got, how do you reduce the property taxes? What do you do, Mr. Cerra?
Well, if I sat here and told you I was going to reduce the property tax, I'd be a liar.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit here and
Okay.
do that. What I am going to explain to you is that the current budget is $52.5 million.
Right.
That's for this year. Now, all of that is not raised through property tax.
Right.
Apparently, somewhere in the area of $34 million and change. That's what's raised. The rest of the money comes from surplus, employee contributions for health insurance, grants, things along that. So what do you got to do? Well, you got to make sure you're getting your hands on every grant that's out there that'll help offset what the people are paying. That's one. Two, more ratables have to come to Old Bridge. You could just drive through any shopping center and you're going to see vacant stores. All right. The store owners, the people that own the entire strip malls, their taxes are based on what they bring in. Every June they get a form that they fill out for the preceding year. You get it in 15 for 14. If you got a store that holds, if you have a strip mall that holds 10 stores, and you only got 5 in them that are filled, the other 5 are vacant. When they fill that out, their tax rate for next year is based on what they actually have.
Okay.
So it's our job to fill those stores. It's our job to try to bring in more business to Old Bridge. And I don't see that being done. Take a ride through Gateway. Take a ride through Browntown, across the street. The Romeo's just closed. The Dunkin' Donuts moved. Over by the Parkway. Carter Drugs closed a month ago, and Pizza Hut closed last week. A Pizza Hut closed. There's problems here, all right? But I have another idea. I sat back and I said, What would I do if I owned this place? What would I do to generate more income? Well,
Good point. What would you do?
what would I do?
Yeah, please.
Oldbridge owns a lot of land. They got land all over town, right? I would have someone in place, probably an economic development man, director that you have here, pair up someone who wants to build their own business, find the appropriate piece of land that we own, which we get nothing for. Our land just sits there. Sign a long-term lease, have him build what he likes, and set him up to run it. Now we'll be getting income on a monthly basis with long-term leases on numerous parcels of land all over town. How else can you generate additional income? Now, your budget of the $52 million, $44 million of that are bills that'll never go down. Salaries,
Right.
insurances.
There's always legacy costs.
It's like running
right.
your house.
Right.
Okay, you're talking your electric bill, your
Yes,
sewer.
sir. Right.
Those bills rarely go down, but usually go up. Take next year alone. The contracts that the mayor referred to are settled for next year. All right? There's a 2% raise across the board.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's $500,000 increase in that section alone. So we got to offset all these things. All those, that 44 million will rarely decrease. It'll always increase. So you have to come up and think outside the box. You got to come up with new ways to generate different incomes besides property tax. And that's one idea I had.
Okay, thank you.
Gene, I have to,
please,
economic-
Mayor. I'm going to give you the last word, Mayor, on this.
is,
How do you feel about this whole
Oh, economic development here has been
situation,
stronger
please?
than my administration. The first thing I did, became mayor, was get an accurate zoning map in the town, and that was painful. Accurately reflecting
That'd be cool.
what's going on in town right now. Then we created our economic development opportunity zones, which we made a large amount of land in town very attractive. Laid multiple use projects to be built on. Since I've been the mayor, I've cut dozens of ribbons on new businesses coming into town. I hired a full-time economic coordinator working out of my office, which on a daily basis goes around and his job is to retain businesses, attract businesses, and help local businesses grow.
Right.
And we've been successful. We've brought quite a bit additional ratables into town, and that was the reason, because of the ratables, that we were able to go with a zero tax increase in 2015. We say taxes. Lowering taxes is going to be difficult because, as Mr. Cerra said,
Yes.
we only tax about $34 million. The rest has to come from revenue.
Right.
We have to make that revenue every day, every year. And that's difficult. But we are making that, because we did increase our revenues, because of our tax base, we were able to offer a 0% tax increase. So I think what Mr. Cerra said is completely, off the charts as far as doing nothing, and we don't get involved with, building owners with their tenants. That's not our role as a government. We have to make Old Bridge more attractive. We have to make Old Bridge more competitive, and we've done that with the hospital, giving them a tax abatement over a period of 5 years. We've brought a lot online. Woodhaven going now. We have a lot of future forecasted growth in town, good growth that we're going to be able to control. So, economic development under my term, I think, has been pretty good. Land sales have always gotten this town in trouble. That was the biggest problem I faced when I came here. The township closed the budget gap with a land sale. When you sell a piece of land, you don't have that revenue the next year. And I had to close that budget gap. So selling land, to me, is, unless you have specific use for a one-shot revenue, such as the purchase of a radio system, the purchase of something, but don't put it in the budget to make payroll. That's a recipe for disaster. And Mr. Cerra's economic plan here is really bizarre.
Okay.
I must respond.
Okay.
I never
I'll
indicated
give you the
any-
last word, Mr. Cerra. We're running out of time here.
I never said anything about selling any land.
Okay.
I'm talking long-term lease. It may be bizarre, but it's time that government thinks outside the box.
Okay. Folks, as you can see, we've had a rather spirited discussion here about the key issues facing the township with our two candidates for mayor. The challenger, the Democrat, Mr. William Cerra, and our incumbent, the current mayor, Owen Henry. Before we go, I'm going to ask the candidates to do me a favor. And Mr. Cerra, I'll begin with you. If you would take a look at camera 2, tell the people why they should vote for you, why you should become mayor, and try to incorporate in that statement what expertise you would bring to the job.
My work experience with the police department, in my last 14 years of my career, I dealt intricately with the entire township and every department thereof. I worked with numerous outside agencies, first aids, fire, youth groups, and that knowledge that I gained would definitely help me to perform this job. I'm not happy with the direction that Old Bridge is going in. I'm not happy with what I see occurring. If I get elected, I'm not there to represent the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or any other party. I'm there to represent the people of Old Bridge, and that's what my decisions will be based on. There's a big difference between me and my opponent. He's a show horse, I'm a workhorse. If I do get elected, I promise my goal will be to make Old Bridge a safe and affordable community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And if I can ask you one closing question, where are people going to find you on the ballot if they want to vote for you?
Yes, Gene, I'll be on line B.
Line B. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Cerra. Mayor Henry, same question. Why should people send you back for a second term? What strength, expertise do you feel you bring going back for term 2?
That's the best question of the day, I think, Gene.
Best question for the day.
Well,
Okay.
I'll tell you why, Gene. Residents of Old Bridge, 4 years ago, I made a promise to you.
If you look at camera 3.
I came to you and I said, give me an opportunity here, and you did give me the opportunity. And I said I was going to manage, not run this town, but manage this town like a business. And I have, and I kept my promise. And because of my strong management skills, we've been able to close a budget gap. We've been able to reduce spending. We've been able to stabilize taxes. We've been able to accomplish everything I told you I was going to accomplish. But we have a lot more to do. So 4 years ago, I asked that you support me, and you did. I asked for your prayers, and you did. And now I'm asking for that second chance. Not a second chance, but the ability to continue, because we have more to do. Mm-hmm. As we can all agree in here that Old Bridge is a big town, and with a big town comes problems. And I would just like that opportunity to continue the effort. I've put a non-stop, I put everything I had into this being the mayor for the last 4 years. So I just ask you, please, let me continue to be the mayor of this town, and I promise that I will not let you down. And Gene, I will be on line A with a very strong team of council and assembly. So please vote column A all the way. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Folks, as we said at the beginning, our objective of doing these interviews is to inform you of the key issues, and you've heard about a lot of them here today, to make you more informed when you go to the polls to vote. We'll be running these interviews on Old Bridge Television, Channel 15, FiOS Channel 22. Please view the bulletin board, the website, for the exact time and dates when these interviews will appear. They'll be running for about 4 weeks up to Election Day. They will also be posted now on YouTube, so you'll have a chance to see them again if you don't catch them on television. Want to thank you for watching. Please remember one thing, regardless of your political preference, remember to vote on November 3rd, because one vote has and can make a difference. I'm Gene McLaughlin. I want to thank you for being with us, and we'll see you again next time on another Direction program. Take care.